What's up, everybody? I'll start
What's
it
up?
off since Henry's doing something. He's probably sharing the show right now. How we
Yeah,
doing, Henry? Yeah, it's time to let's rank stuff again, baby. No worry, I got you. I got your back. I got you.
the one thing I'll say about this one is similar to when we did Rocky. It made me just want to exercise nonstop and run, and
Right.
be old and fit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy that Tom Cruise has become even more nutty as he's gotten older, as he's like what 60 now or something or close to it, like and he's just becoming more and more of a madman. But I kind of love it because he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna do this until my body either gives out or I get paralyzed doing this shit or whatever. He's just like, I'm just gonna go. And you know what, you
Yeah,
have to admire that, whether you like the guy personally or not. He puts out these movies where he's just going to push the limit every time, especially nowadays. So I'm digging it.
yeah. It's actually interesting as I realize my mic's not plugged in. It's actually interesting that the whole I don't want to say backlash, but just the concept of everything that happened with Tom Cruise was all like back in the day, back in the
Mm-hmm.
2000s. No one really even forgot that it was even a thing. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting now to reminisce on like, oh yeah, remember in the 2000s when Tom Cruise was jumping on couches and doing interesting stuff. Now he's
Mm-hmm.
just a superstar. Like he's really the only one we have because even if you think of like
Yeah.
Robert Jr. or Chris Hemsworth, any of those, The Rock, even you're thinking of a specific IP. You don't just think of Tom Cruise as the Mission Impossible guy. You think of him as a multitude of things because even though The
Mm-hmm.
Mummy flopped, I don't really think that was his fault. I think that was just them trying to market a universe,
Mm-hmm.
trying to, do essentially take the DC route to follow Marvel. Whereas,
Fast track everything and like try to do it too fast and like rush
but like
everything and
everything else he's
yeah,
doing is just well received. Like even American Made didn't make a lot of money, but it was well received,
good
and a
movie.
lot of people
Yeah.
like talked about it and liked it. It just not enough people saw it financially, but yeah, the Mission Impossible movies obviously, and then with Top Gun that just came out, it's only been a
Mm-hmm.
week now, but that movie is skyrocketing. It's killing it. So, did you get a chance to
Mm-hmm.
see Top Gun Maverick yet?
I have not seen it. I literally was going to go with my dad today. My dad caught pneumonia 2 days ago, and he's been under the weather. So, and I really like. So, I'm probably going to go see it because he just told me to go ahead and go see it, and then I'll see it with him again, probably in like a week or two when he's
Yeah.
a little bit feeling a little bit better. But yeah, he was not doing great. So, but I want to see it because it's one of those things where we had talked about that because yeah, we should say we're doing Mission Impossible kind of because of Top Gun, because it's his big franchise. And as of this recording, it just came out this past weekend, made like $150 million. Like it
Yep.
blew up the box office. People are digging it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the original, but I'm looking forward to this one because I've heard that even if you're not big on the original, it's just a great popcorn, fun, awesome movie, which is what I'm hearing. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, like I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, going to these movies. I mean, they just dropped the trailer. What was it, like 2 weeks ago or something, for the new one that's coming out next year for Dead
Yep.
Reckoning, which is part one
Part
of
one.
two. So
Yep.
yeah, part one. So we're gonna get back to back year to year movies, and I'm sure there'll be some kind of big cliffhanger or something. But yeah, I like what he's been able to do with this. This franchise is similar if you think about it to the Fast and Furious franchise, where it kind of started
Yeah.
out as
Yeah.
one thing, and then it's kind of evolved into like something else, and like there's base stuff that you see in those early movies that they just made better and improved upon in some of the later ones. But yeah, it's like how Fast and Furious started to take a turn with the fourth one, and then like Fast Five like blew it up into this like whole other thing, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now where you're at with it now, if you're still with it or not, that's a whole other issue. Maybe when we talk Fast and Furious movies at some point, which I'm sure we will on this show, we'll definitely do that. Yeah,
Maybe
that'll
this
be a whole
summer.
other issue.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe, right? Yeah, I mean it's a big summer blockbuster series, so yeah, we'll be doing a lot of those this summer. But yeah, it's kind of similar to that, where it took this turn and kind of went in a new direction, and they're really cool, and I look forward to everyone that comes out.
Yeah, like you said, Mission Impossible is one of the franchises that you can tell it was taking a minute to like decide what it wants to be, because it's like,
Hmm.
how do we not 100% rip off James Bond? And then I
Hmm.
think post Born Identity, it had an idea of like what it should at least
Right.
aspire to be with its own franchise, but tonally, and you can tell just the tones completely
Hmm.
shifted, and they were able to really mesh well. So you can obviously we'll talk about it in our rankings, but yeah, it's one of the things, regardless of the personal feelings of every film in the timeline, the quality definitely bumped up in
Yeah.
terms of like what they were doing. Like it was more tight. You know what I mean? There's not much fluff with it.
Well, and I think that has something to do with Tom Cruise actually getting more control of the films as like a producer, an executive
Yeah.
producer. You can tell that like once he got a little bit more creative freedom to have these ideas and to again do his own stunt stuff or have his own ideas about like where he wanted to go, and he could just kind of be free to do all the crazy stuff he wanted to do and get the directors that were backing him to do that. And he wasn't under the total thumb of Paramount as far as like, you can only go so far. We're going to use this for this, or, CGI for this, whatever. He was able to kind of expand and make it his own franchise, like truly his own, like creative franchise. And yeah, like you can tell he's taken a personal interest in that. And especially recently with his relationship with Christopher McQuarrie. But I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go through the movies.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Last thing, as we always talk about, what was the first one you saw in theater, and how late to the franchise as a whole were you?
I want to say, because I was racking my brain the other day thinking about that, I want to say because the first one was in '96, I think I saw the first one in theaters. I have vague memories of that. So I think I did. I think my dad, it was one of those things where, again, it's a dad thing because my dad watched the original Mission Impossible TV show growing up, when that was on. So like he was familiar with the IP and I wasn't so much, but the trailers were like pretty good. I always go back and like watch some of the trailers, see how like the marketing was for some of these. And the trailers were good. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I saw it and remember thinking like, I don't know what's going on, but like the action stuff is cool and the heist stuff is cool, which is kind of like what these movies are. It's like whether or not you follow the story or not, it's like, it's more just about those big set pieces. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure I saw that one in theaters, and I know since then I've seen each one in the theater. So I've been with this franchise for a while. How about you?
So it's one of those weird ones where it's like I honestly don't remember if I saw Ghost Protocol in theaters. There's just something about like in my mind, I'm like, I think I might have, but I honestly like don't know. So, and I know for sure I did not see Rogue Nation in theater. So if for some reason I randomly just saw Ghost Protocol in theaters, then that was the first one. And then I just went back to it years later. But 100% I saw Fallout in theaters. It was one of the ones where it's like I was at the height of my movie talking career. I knew exactly what I wanted in films. I knew about the big blockbusters. I knew what I needed to watch, when I needed to watch it, and all that stuff. So I know for sure I saw Fallout. And so it's a shame that, I'm glad I have a nice 65-inch TV with good surround sound. So on this rewatch to like factor in where I'm going to rank them, and generally speaking, how I feel about individual movies as well as the franchise as a whole, I'm glad at least I was able to get a pretty solid experience at home. Whereas potentially only one of them I actually saw in theater. So that's one of those ones, and we'll talk about that similarly when we do the Jurassic franchise. Because I have a similar scenario with that. So it's one of those ones like, oh, okay. So so without further ado, you ready to jump into it? I honestly have a feeling that, I mean, there's only 6 movies, so you can't skew too far away from each other. But I feel like just the way the franchise is, I feel like we might be, similar, or at least there's not going to be hot takes. It's more of like, oh, just between, 1 or 2. So I'll start off. My number 2, this actually went down on a rewatch, not because it's bad, just in the grand scope. The first time I watched it, I hadn't seen all of them. So it took, like, when I watched it the first time, I was like, wow, that was really good. And I had a lot of fun with that. But now that I've rewatched it, like, as a franchise, as a franchise, like, filler, not just an individual movie, I'm like, all right, it's definitely lower. So it went down to 3 stars, but it's my only 3-star. I either have 4 or 5 stars for every movie up to this point. It's my lowest one, but it's Mission Impossible 2. And
so we're literally exactly the same. It's a 3-star movie and it's my number 6. So we can talk about it. Yeah. So I will say it used to be like a 2-star movie, but I actually had a little more fun with it on this rewatch yesterday that I did. So I got a little more out of it, just appreciating it as more of a John Woo movie than a Mission Impossible movie, which you definitely have to put your brain in when you do it. But yeah, go ahead and you start off.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones that when I watched it for the first time, I think that it's just one of those movies that, like, wow, this movie has gotten so much bad, publicity, not publicity, but like, opinions. And so I was like shocked going into that, because I was like, I don't really like, see that, you know what I mean? I actually think this is a lot of fun. You know what I mean? The opening stuff, this one really, I mean, obviously the first one touches on it, but this one really like hammers home the the face mask and the identity, swapping that they do, which is my big pet peeve on the Winter Soldier, because it's never explained. It's one of those where it's like, you have to know spy movies, and then, but it's just a cheap reveal. It's not earned for the franchise. But anyway, neither here nor there. But in this movie, they do it really well. Like, even with the opening, like everything with I guess the other reason I watched this for the first time is I had to debate, or I was going to debate. It ended up being a canceled debate, but I was gonna fill in Doug Ray Scott for a movie randomly. So this was the main one that I should watch to get a vibe of who he is as a person. I was like, he's menacing and like he does a good job. So I consider this movie the Quantum of Solace of this franchise, where it's way better than people give it credit for, but it really doesn't fit in as the franchise as a whole. It's kind of like a random outlier. Like, it kind of feels like a spin-off.
It's the black sheep of the Mission Impossible franchise is what it kind of feels like. Yeah, it feels off from the other ones.
Yeah, because it doesn't have that grand scope. Like, it's really kind of a small plot they're doing. That it's like the individual guy doing his thing, and it's kind of like MI6, combating with it, similar to like in Quantum of Solace, where they're out in Mexico and or wherever doing their thing. I mean, it feels small scale in the grandiose of the franchise. So like, really, that's the only issue with it. Like, John Woo's direction's fun. Obviously, Tom Cruise is great. He's doing his thing. Out when he's hiking or climbing rocks. Like, I don't even know the exact phrase of that because of what he's doing. He's like parasailing. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what it's called.
He's like base climbing. He's like doing, he's rock climbing with no ropes and stuff. It's like a base climbing kind of thing. Yeah. Where it's free climbing or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Like that.
And it just showcases that, Tom Cruise, this is just what he does. So yeah, I really like the dynamic between him and the love interest / the female protagonist. Like, I think they do a good job. I like the connection with Doug Ray Scott's character. Like I said, I like his performance. Like, it made me like surprised I really haven't seen him in much, So yeah, I enjoy this movie. It went down just because as a franchise movie, it, like you said, it is definitely the black sheep, and it definitely feels out of place now that I've seen all the movies and, spoiler alert, really like all the other movies, that it went down a notch. But like, it's not a negative on the movie as a whole, just as a franchise movie, and that's just kind of how it goes sometimes when you watch franchise movies. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah. No, and it's one of those things where when I went back to rewatch it, it had been a minute. This is just one I've seen probably the least. But again, because of that bad reputation, so I wanted to go in and watch it again because, like we talked about, the podcast said the movie will never change, but you might change. So it's like, so let me go back and watch it as a more of a John Woo movie. And watching it as a John Woo movie, and he's had a up and down thing with his U.S. movies. It's like that, like Wind Talkers, Broken Arrow, Hard Target. It's hit or miss. It's a lot of stuff.
Broken Arrow's awesome.
Yeah, it's 90s awesome, but that's like, a caveat. Face Off is Face Off. I mean, you either love it and you roll with it, or you just don't. But it's but it's funny when I was rewatching it and I was like, oh yeah, there is a moment where like Tom Cruise walks by a flaming door and a dove flies through the door for no reason. I'm like, oh, there it is to John Woo. And I was like, and there's a lot more of Tom Cruise flying through the air, shooting guns upside down or just gunfights and martial arts in general, which is again sort of out of place with the other ones when you stack them next to each other, because he's had like fights, but he's in this one he's literally doing like flip kicks, he's doing stuff from Tekken, the martial arts, yeah, he's doing all this like crazy shit. And don't get me wrong, Tom Cruise was like doing all that, so I appreciate that, you can tell it's him like doing it, so it's cool. But like, it just feels again out of place when you go back to watch that, and he's like not really doing that in the other ones except for a few little fights here and there. But yeah, it's like all that John Woo stuff that I knew going back to it, I'm like, oh, there it is. He's like literally jump kicking a guy while pigeons are flying all over the place, and I'm like, bro, let's take it down a notch, easy. I get it, John Woo, you're like obsessed with birds, but like, I will say the first hour of this movie, it takes a while for me to really get into it, because I just don't think the story's as interesting as like some of the other ones. And like Doug Ray Scott's like okay, but it's pretty standard. Like, he wants to get this chimera virus and infect everybody. It's like cookie cutter, like what's the MacGuffin, shit, whatever they're all chasing after, sort of a thing, world-ending thing, which is in a lot of these movies. But I just wasn't really into that much stuff. But I will say the last like 40 minutes or so, it's pretty much all action, from like when they break into the thing and like he's fighting with the henchmen, and then they have the motorcycle chase is awesome. Like, all that stuff is great, and again, like really practical
definitely
stuff.
Definitely top tier motorcycles.
Tons of close-ups. You can see it's Tom Cruise doing a lot of the motorcycle stuff because he's a madman, of course, and this is like where he really like started taking full force of that. that, and like I said, all the fight scenes are good. Like all that stuff is great. So if you have to put yourself in the mindset of going in just watching a more of a just an action, again, John Woo action movie. But if you can do that, I think you'll be a little more positive on it. It's just, it seems like it doesn't fit because it has the label of Mission Impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, this is one of the ones that the first time I watched it as, an individual film for debate. I really enjoyed it. This one I watched as a Mission Impossible film. Clearly, you saw the drop off, but not by much. Like the people that say,
if you called this movie something besides Mission Impossible 2, and it was just this John Woo movie that came out in 2000, I think people would be more positive on it. Does that make sense? Like if it was called something else, Tom Cruise, John Woo movie, whatever, like I think people, it's just, they go back to it and they go, that really just doesn't feel the same, so it's just, that's literally all it is, I think. But that's why it's number 6. So
I was trying to come up with a cool name.
I know, with a title. I know. I think the same thing. I was just like, whatever. It's it could be any.
Just the virus. Just the virus.
Yeah. Virus Chase or whatever, starring Tom Cruise. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So.
The Honda virus. No. So yeah. It's a fun movie individually, but yeah, it's a franchise movie. It's just a peg down. And speaking of a peg down, the only reason that this one's number 5 is just simply because all the other ones just are elevated. It has literally not a knock on this movie. So my number 5 is the first Mission Impossible.
We're the exact same again.
Yeah.
It's
a 4-star movie. I really like it.
Yeah, same here.
I love the plot of this movie. I love Brian De Palma's films more times than not. So I love the Brian De Palma-ness of it. Just the Brian De Palma Mission Impossible, like the scene when he's hanging down with the sweat, like the close-ups, like all that stuff. The thriller aspects of this movie are fantastic. It's just the action spy stuff that's just a notch down, especially later when we get into it. So it's really not a knock on this movie as a whole. It's still a 4-star movie. Like I really, really, really like this movie, and I love just how it jumps right into it. I love the paranoia that happens, like everything, towards the middle when after the killings and Tom Cruise is, building up his new crew. You have the dynamic between him and John Voight and everything that, starts off with that and just the little clues that he's able to like learn. And then when the line, he's like, they stamped the book, didn't they? It's just little things like that, where it's like, that's just good writing. Like this is a good story. And it's just in the grand scope of this franchise, it's still small, and it's just them figuring out their identity of, they are adapting a TV show essentially, you know what I mean? So it's just taking them a minute to like turn into a film series. And yeah, this is just really good. It showcases that Tom Cruise was Ethan Hunt from the jump, which is awesome, because sometimes that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it takes a minute to like really grow into a character, and that's what obviously the longevity of this franchise and this character is for a reason, because from day one he's been in it to win it. So yeah, this is a really good movie. Brian De Palma's direction is fantastic. Even the third act where it's on that train and it's everything, like it's a little 90s, but it looks way better than it should. And I feel like that's a credit to like just the overall filmmaking and like the stunt work and the acting and the not overuses of CG and all that stuff. So I was thinking of Speed for a second, where I'm taller. Like
yeah, I'm taller. Yeah, I'm smarter than you, Jack. Yeah, I'm smarter than you.
But everything was Jean Reno's character, because he's already kind of slimy. You know what I mean? He's grabbing the middle.
Yeah, you don't quite trust him.
Yeah. So the fact that he kind of turns on him, it doesn't feel like a cheap thing, but it also doesn't feel like, oh, obviously he's gonna do that. It was like right in the middle, so that had some coolness to it. And I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like this would be a great double feature with the 2003 Italian Job. I don't know. There's something about those two movies.
Yeah. I can see that.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they could be bigger, but for what they're telling, and it's about the characters with those two stories, I feel like it would be a really fun double feature of just like fake deaths and, coming up with a team and doing a job, and like having some small scale big action for the small scale. It's right at that point where it's just jumping into the big scale. So yeah, I like this movie, and once again, similar to 2, anybody who actually knocks this movie like heavily is kind of weird, and I really feel like that's them just trying to be cool. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. My next two movies, this one and the next one, are both 4 stars. Like, I really like them. It's just like, in the grander scheme of Mission Impossible, like there's just ones I go back to and like more. But yeah, like it's funny because you go back and look at this movie, and I rewatched it like 3 months ago, oddly enough, for a Battleground thing, as I was arguing most underrated Tom Cruise movie just in general, and I argued this movie because I feel like people don't talk about this movie enough, like especially when you talk about Mission Impossible. When you think about Mission Impossible, they think about everything from like number 3 on or Ghost Protocol on or something like that. But like if you go back and watch this movie, all the groundwork as far as the like kind of the layer of like the points that they hit in all these movies is in this movie. It like starts out with some mission, almost like a James Bond movie, like some mission that you just kind of jump right into. Like they go rogue or whatever, or because something goes wrong. So like something goes wrong, obviously, and like all of his team is killed. He has to like put together a new team, and then they've got to heist something, which is what that part in the middle is, where they're heisting the stuff in Langley. But like that heist is great. Like that heist is like one of the best like thriller as far as like nail biting heist ever. Like when dude's just like hanging on the rope and he's just like sweating his ass off.
When he drops them, and catch them last minute.
I know, catch them again. Yeah, like all that stuff is great. Like it's good heist stuff. And then like the big set piece at the end. Yeah, it's the train thing. And yeah, there's some green screeny. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, there's some green screeny stuff, but it's one of those things where Henry, if Tom Cruise made this exact movie now, like 30 years later or 25 years later, he would be on a real train with like a real helicopter in a tunnel with like whatever he would. It's just like back in the day he didn't have that power to be like, hey, I want to strap myself to a real train, we'll CGI at it later, and I want to be like jumping all over the train and like having a helicopter pilot like flying in tunnels. Like he would be doing all that stuff. So like I can't really knock it for that, because I think if he would have done that. But like all that stuff it's still like, I don't think the story, I hear the complaint a lot, like the story's kind of hard to follow. I don't think it's that hard to follow. I didn't have a tough time back then. I think it's fine. Like, it's all just like double crosses and stuff. That's
everything
what they always do.
Mass reveals. The bookstore or whatever, and he goes into the music and he's able to hear the things and all that stuff. Like, it's just building up the world without like, hey, there's not much exposition. You really just have to like be in the story, and it speaks for itself. And I feel like that's just Brian De Palma's filmmaking, where he's like, hey, if you've ever seen like Blowout or like Body Double or any of those movies where it's like he's able to tell these thrillers in a way where it's like there's more going on that meets the eye, and like you really have to either pay attention or see it multiple times, and that actually adds to it. Like kind of what I wanted to double down on what you're saying. Like if you actually made this movie today, this would probably be one of the greatest thrillers of all time. This same exact plot and all that stuff. It's just up the budget a little bit, or up just the
and up the stunt work, up like the action, like the way they honed it or film it or whatever. Yeah,
it's already there. It's like a first film. It's like what we keep talking about a lot on a lot of these rankings. The first film usually is way better than people give it credit for, and way better than it should be on paper for being a first. Like if you told me, hey, watch this movie. This movie's a part of the franchise. Watch it and tell me where you think it ranked. Minimum, you say second or third. You would not assume the first, and because it's all the pieces are running.
Yeah.
So I
just want to make the point. I made a point in my Battleground thing. Just people don't realize the opening scene with like people talk about Emilio. Like Emilio Estevez is like part of his thing, but he's uncredited in the movie. And it was like, to me, that was like even before Scream, they kill off like this big star like in the first scene, and it's like and
he's the elevator shaft too, like it's well shot.
Yeah, just like it's well shot. It's creepy. You don't think you think he's gonna get away, and like he doesn't. He's just dead, and you're like, oh shit! Like they killed Emilio Estevez. I didn't even know he's in this movie because obviously he's not even in the credits.
Yeah, it's the third time I watched it, and I forgot even this time. I was like, oh shit.
You always forget. You're like, fuck it. Well, because it's not like they just throw him in there. Like
ironically, the same year
they're doing the debriefing.
It's the same.
That's what I mean. I looked up the release dates. This was like 3 months before Scream. So they did it before Scream technically. So that was like part of my argument is like people talk about the Scream thing with like Drew Barrymore, but I'm like Mission Impossible did it with Emilio like a couple months before that, and like people don't talk about that. Like
and you can argue Emilio is bigger than Drew Barrymore. You know what I mean?
At the time, at the time for sure. Yeah, that was much bigger.
I really believe this movie. This movie's good, dude. Like even if you just say good, I'm good. Like I will argue that anyone who thinks this movie's bad, I will fight them. Like this movie is good, borderline great, like especially for what it is. And it's just one of those.
Again, it's just this series is like up to here now, so it's like a movie that's like still like right here, it's just like it has to be in the ranking, where it's just like there's this platinum standard, and like even if it's like a silver gold movie,
it's like saying good. the number 7 Tarantino was a bad movie. Like no, it's just at the bottom.
No,
something's got to be at the bottom.
Yeah, something has to be down when you rank them. Even if I put Inglourious Basterds at like 6 or 7 doesn't mean I dislike the movie. It's like I just love am more passionate about the other movies at the top. Like it's still a great movie. So yeah, that's where we're at with the series. So yeah, I'm glad you feel the same way because we're kind of on track here on the same wavelength.
This was honestly my prediction, and I feel like based on what we've talked about, I feel like we'll be maybe on the same one on this one. But so
we might be. We'll see.
The third one. This one is I don't really have a follow up to like kind of like tease it. It's number 3.
Okay.
So
We
the
might be
reason that,
flip flopped on this one because I have
okay,
it a little bit higher. Yeah, we'll
okay.
see.
So the reason that this one is my number 4, oh, I didn't put the number in there. The reason that this one's my number 4 is simply just because I feel like even there's not Philip Seymour Hoffman is amazing in this movie. Like if we were ranking like Philip Seymour Hoffman performances, this is like top 5.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? He's great. I genuinely don't believe like he's really in it enough. And everything with what's her name, Julia, right?
Yeah, yeah. Michelle Monaghan, yeah,
Yeah,
Julia, whatever. Yeah,
everything with
yeah.
Julia's character, like at the beginning, it sets it up, but then like once they like separate, there's similar to like Philip Seymour Hoffman, the gap of their relationship is not like there. It's
Mm.
more like getting him doing his job, and then she's taken and dealing with that. And obviously, you have the cold open of the fake out, which is awesome. It's tense. It's like,
Mhm.
oh shit, where are we going? You know what I mean? So like, there's something about this movie, and it's a critique that it's just a me thing, similar like whenever I critique like 90s action, just the filter that they're using in these mid 2000s movies just are off-putting to me.
Well,
Like,
it's because they were starting to use digital cameras instead of
yeah, they're
film.
getting used to,
So it's
yeah,
like, and they're still like figuring it out, like the
yeah,
color scheme and like
and I get that.
it's like when you
It just,
balance a TV for the first time, like you're
yeah,
still trying to figure that out. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm still talking about these movies in 2022 eyes, so I can only give it so
Mhm.
much credit or so much forgiveness, where it's not like it's a 1920s movie or like 1930s King Kong, where it's a puppet and they're doing all this stuff by hand.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, then you can give it a little more slack, but like this one, it's not that far removed. So anyway, the point is, it's just a notch lower because I just feel like there's just something missing, and I honestly don't really
Mhm.
know what it is. I don't know if it's just the filmmaking is not to where I want it to be. For me saying this selfishly, I don't know if it's the
Mhm.
stories just missing a little bit. I don't know if it's just not enough Philip Seymour Hoffman. I don't know if it's just not enough Ethan and Julie. I don't, you know what I mean? I honestly, genuinely don't know. Like this one, the second time I rewatched it because I only watched for the first time last year when I finalized my Mission Impossible ranking just for myself, and then so this one I was like, all right, now let me watch it again, and it just technically did go up. Like this actually was one spot below Mission Impossible. Once again, at a 4-star
Mhm.
movie, like I liked it. It's not like it was bad. It's just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do agree that this one is technically better, but it's just I don't know. It's just missing something. And similar to my number 3, I actually essentially have the same critique of I don't know what it is. It's just something. Whereas my top 2, yeah,
Yeah.
rock and roll.
No,
So
I think I'm right there. We might just be flipped because I have a feeling we might both have the same like top 2, maybe in a different order, but like I think we have the same top 2 and the same
I
top
don't know. We'll
like
see.
3 and 4. Maybe we'll see because I don't know. Should I skip to it or should I come back? I don't know because
You can go ahead, just
like
because it's
well because MI3 is number 3, so
yeah,
like literally number third is number 3. So I'm not
yeah.
that far off. I just have it slightly higher. I think it's just because it's like they're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall, but I don't know what it is for me. It works for me, like where there's something missing for you. Like I like the fact that it's like I think it makes Philip Seymour Hoffman's scenes like a little more impactful. Like he's got something in his eyes in this movie, like where he locked onto something, and like he had always been sort of that. I mean, he started to do dramas and stuff, but he'd been like a comedic guy beforehand and all that. And there's something about his performance in this movie that like he shouldn't be as menacing as he is, but he is. Just when he's just
That
shaking his head,
countdown
just being
scene.
like, yeah, oh yeah, 10, 9, and when he's just going like so casually, man, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna hurt her. I'm gonna
Yeah.
make her bleed, like all that shit, like how casually he's just like, and you're
Because he's
like,
not
okay, I
trying
kind
to
of
be
believe this guy.
menacing. He's just pissed.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If you really
yeah,
think
he's
about it.
just totally pissed. He's like, motherfucker, if I get out of here, like it's over. Like I'm gonna, and basically he gets out, and like it kind of is over. Like he's playing catch up the rest of the movie, and I like that stuff. I always forget that Lawrence Fishburne's in this movie because it was just a one off.
Yeah.
But I think he brings something. Like I wish they would have kept him almost instead of Alec Baldwin because I think Lawrence Fishburne like brings a lot to that role. He's
Okay.
got that look again. He's got that gravitas of like he's just not taking anybody's shit in this movie, and I kind of like it. It reminds me of that presence he had in like The Matrix or something. Like I feel like he either has it or he doesn't in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But I think he has it here. And yeah, and people forget that Simon Pegg's in this movie. He's just not in the field. Like he's like the guy in the chair, the first one. And yeah, he's not
Which
in a lot of
makes the
scenes. So
line in
maybe
Ghost Protocol even better. He's like, Benji, what are you doing here? Because
yeah,
you forget like
right.
he's just a guy, the guy in the chair. You know what I
The
mean?
guy in the chair. Yeah, yeah. and so he's in here and he brings like some fun scenes too. I just like the flow of this movie. I love the stuff at the beginning with the Lindsay character with the thing in her head. Like it's really good tension, like about trying to do the defibrillator and like he loses, like which is upping the stakes from the front. I like them, doing a more personal thing with him going after his wife and like all that stuff. And I love the bridge scene. I think the bridge scene is fantastic. Like I love the direction of this movie and the pacing is actually really, really good. I think it flows really, really well. So there's something about like this one to me where I ranked them was like this is my favorite of the original three, so it gets bumped a little higher than my least favorite of the last three. Does that make sense at all? Like
in a way.
So I give this one a little more because it's like it's the standout where I thought this was the one that really kind of started to turn the series into what it is now, and that model and what J.J. Abrams kind of did with this one. I think he let Tom Cruise like really have good input on this one as far as like what like doing the stunt work and like all the big showcase pieces and all that thing. So I like this one slightly more than you, but again, like we're not that far off. Like I love this movie,
like
and to me that just
like
gives it a little bit more.
So the difference between like this and like Casino Royale for Bond, where it's like that is a complete 180. This one just bumps it up a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just a side shift because the other two weren't far off. They just didn't quite know. And then even 4 is a side shift. Like 4 is not much different than this, but it's still not the same. Whereas in essentially 5 and 6, they're the same movie. Now it's like its own franchise. You know what I mean? There's different layers, and like the 3 and 4, that transition period of getting to 5 and 6 for tonally what we're getting to. And have you seen the trailer for Dead Reckoning? You know that Dead Reckoning essentially is part of a trilogy of 5, 6, and 7. You know what I mean? You get that.
Right. Yeah, you can feel that.
I mean, you can tell. Honestly, all these first 4, you can tell it's just a different director. Whereas then later, it just regardless of what
it's a steady, movie, it's the same director, same flow, same feeling,
there's no competing vision. Whereas in these ones, even if it's style, tone, whatever, it's just they're all a little bit different, which makes the franchise cool because they're still different but good, and you don't get that often when you have different filmmakers. So go ahead and tell me what your number 4 is, and we'll see.
My number 4, backing up a little bit, was Rogue Nation. So, and to me, it's just the one out of these back 3 that I've gone back to the least. And again, not because I dislike it. It's a 4-star movie. It's really great, and it has some awesome pieces. It's just, again, this one's the one where there's just something missing for me in this one. I don't know what the glue is that I'm missing in this one. It's just like because all the set pieces are great. The stuff, the plane, and obviously the beginning is awesome. The sequence where he's holding his breath and swirling around, the pool thing is really great. Yeah, all that stuff is really, really good. The whole cast again is fantastic. Simon Pegg, and I like the Solomon, whatever his name is, the Solomon character. The villain. Kane or whatever his name is, or Solomon Crane, whatever the hell his name is.
Solomon Lane, Solomon Bandit,
Solomon Lane, Crane Lane, whatever his name is. He's fun. I like that actor, just the way he delivers lines, and he's just kind of creepy.
A lot of people, whenever you see him pop up in anything else, you're like, I know him. Why do I know him? And it's from these two movies.
Right. And I mean, again, I like Rogue Nation. It's not bad. I would watch it any day of the week. Just for me, I don't know. There's just something about like the pacing. It kind of feels longer than the other ones. I don't know. I feel there's dead spots where it kind of drags just a little bit. But yeah, I still like Rogue Nation. It just, for me, is the least of those 3. And when I was thinking about my rankings, I just decided to put that one at number 4 because I'm just a little more enthusiastic about the third one. So that's literally all it is.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we're not flip flop, which that's what I had a feeling. I had a feeling you were probably thinking of this one, because here's where I'm different than most people. My number 3 is Ghost Protocol. And on this rewatch, essentially, even though I really like the opening scene in the prison, the first hour before the team gets together, like, even though I like the story, before we get into India, which country is it? I don't want to look it up because I'm trying to
Abu Dhabi. It's like Dubai.
Dubai, Jesus Christ. Before we get into Dubai, like, essentially this movie is 2 halves. Pre-Dubai, post-Dubai. They're both really good, but post-Dubai is amazing, borderline perfect. Pre-Dubai is just really good. And it just feels like it's one of those things where it's like, it's just getting us, it's essentially saying previously on Mission Impossible without doing that. Like, you're trying to get into the point where, like, oh, he's not with Julia. Oh, he's in this prison. How did he get there? Why does he pretend to be a Russian? Why are we breaking him out? You know what I mean? Like, it's what now we're doing the Ghost Protocol. MI6 is now shut down. You know what I mean? It's doing a lot of things and trying to not do exposition, which this franchise does a fantastic job of essentially taking its time without really expositing a lot of this potentially confusing material. You know what I mean? If you think about it, the spy world in itself is just inherently not confusing, but there's just it's
complicated.
There's layers to it. So I honestly just feel pre-Dubai. I feel like at that point, because now you've introduced Jeremy Renner's character. Now you got the Paula Patton dynamic. You have everything with Léa Seydoux, where it's like her character is just awesome. Like, she does a fantastic job of just being like this franchise is S tier when it comes to female presences in general, whether it's on the good side or the bad side. Like, it's an amazing, and it's not one of those where it's trying to be woke. It's just they just write good female characters, because in the spy world, you can be a badass female. You don't have to over masculine yourself, or you don't have to lower everyone around you. You can just be a badass. Whereas in in Fast and Furious, you kind of have to be tough, and it kind of like makes you manly. You know what I mean? That's why Ronda Rousey's character didn't really work. You know what I mean?
It's like we gotta get Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey because they're big.
Exactly.
Where you don't have to be like a big buff muscular. Yeah. You can have Rebecca. You can have Rebecca Ferguson, who like just kicks ass and is just a cool character because she's just good at her job. You know, she's smart. She's good at her job. She knows how to get the job done with her size, whatever. You know, she just knows what to do. Like,
and in this one, Paula Patton's character, she's just in the crew. Like, you don't ever doubt at any point. Like, other than this movie, the only other movie I know her in is Two Guns, and she plays, a DEA agent who really doesn't do any action. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know her as an action person, but in this one, I 100% agree. She's in the field. She's doing her things. Everything with the switch when they're the funny, I mean, obviously the whole Dubai thing where he's on the side of the building, obviously, but like other than that, like the actual mission and then like setting it up when Tom Cruise is dangling and then Simon Pegg comes there, he's like, whew, that was really tough. Like, switching out the doors and trying to do it.
He's like, man, I've never been under that much stress in my life. Yeah. Like, it's just like, bro, he was standing in a room.
So it's all that stuff is just a lot of fun. And like I said, it's really just, and obviously you notice most of the stuff I'm talking about is post the Dubai, because that's just really where I'm all in. Other than that, it's kind of just lead up, but it's an hour's worth of lead up, and that's just a lot of lead up. It's not bad by any stretch of imagination. I feel like it's just missing something, and Brad Bird does a good job, but I don't feel like there's anything of this movie that really stands out stylistically. Not like it's bad, like it's not like, oh, that's just so bland. It's just like, I don't close my eyes and think of, like, other than the Dubai thing, I don't think of anything like specifically like stands out in terms of something stylistically that like is like a top tier moment of the franchise, other than the stunt work, which is not really anything to do with like Brad Bird. That's, like you said, Tom Cruise. At this point, he is all in on his stunt work. This was the first one where you think of like, oh, that's the trick. Oh, now what are we gonna do in 5? What are we doing 6? You know what I mean? So I don't really have anything negative to say other than the fact that it just doesn't hit as hard from start to finish. So that's where I separate with 4, 5, and 6 essentially. So that's why that's my number 3. And let's see your number 2.
Well, yeah, because
I'll talk about my number 2.
You go number 2. Yeah, I was gonna say you do your
number
2 first,
because you already talked about it. My number 2 is going to be Rogue Nation.
Okay.
So the reason that this one is different from Ghost Protocol is because I just love at this point, we're all in on the team. Like, we got Luther back full on. We have, like you said, you built up with everything on the plane. Like, at that point, you're like, oh, what are we doing? Like, here we go. And then you have the comedy. It does it's situational humor which is always going to be my favorite, because, or there got to be like jokes, and you can't really, draw that line of like, oh, you luck into them. So I love the dynamic that once we introduce Ilsa Faust's character of just like like you said, everything is badass, everything with her dress. Once we're in that, what is that, opera theater? I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, whatever. It's like an opera thing, or the opera house.
You know what I mean? All that stuff is just tense. Like, it does a great job. Like the filmmaking. Like I really like me some Christopher McQuarrie. Like, if we're just gonna be honest, like he just works for me in terms of like what he's doing. And at this point, like we said, just 100% Tom Cruise is just in it. You know what I mean? Like, this is his jam. Like, I've floated back and forth with this, and obviously, Fallout being my 2 and 1. You know what I mean? It's one of those where it's like any given Sunday, I'm just, on this rewatch, obviously the chips fell where they do. But if I'm ranking my top favorite movies of all time and I'm picking a franchise, and I'm questioning, do I want to have one spot holder? Do I want to have two? This is one of the ones where I'm like, I might have two, you know what I mean? Because this, and obviously leading up into what we get to later, but like, yeah, I really enjoy this movie. I love the action. It's sleek. The pace works for me just because I care about, the moments, the good use of music, just the cinematography in general, just the chemistry amongst the cast. And that's including introducing, Ilsa in this, Rebecca Ferguson. You would never have assumed, you forget that this was her first one because she's just like in it from jump. Like this is just,
she feels like she's been in the movie like twice already or something. It's very strange. Like, but yeah, she feels like she's already been there. You're like, was she in the last movie? Like, she might have been. I can't remember. Yeah,
and everything. I really like Solomon Lane's character. Like, he's so like subtly evil. You know what I mean? Whereas like Philip Seymour Hoffman has that stern voice, but he's still like has a couple octaves higher. Whereas Solomon Lane just has that like raspy voice, and it's just menacing. You know what I mean? And it just sticks with you, and it just like you understand like this guy is not someone to mess with, and it's almost, it's borderline, like a Bond villain, because he doesn't have like anything with them, but it's because if you really think of the Bond villains, like the good ones, like the top tier ones, they're not like obnoxious, they're kind of subtle, but their plan is what, and I feel like Solomon Lane is amongst that, where it's like that's just what he is, because it's a good plan, like it's a good plot, it's for me it's a good pace. Like I said, I love the chemistry, I love the way it looks. It's just a vibe. Like when I'm like, hey, I want to sit down, I want to do a double feature, and I kind of want to like be in like the same, boom, Rogue Nation, Fallout. You know what I mean? That's the two. Yep. So that's where it separates for me. But let's see where you are with your three and your one.
My number two is Fallout.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I have a feeling this would, if we were to be different, it would be here. So.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, what's there to say about Fallout? It rules. I rewatched it not too long ago before even thinking about doing this, just with my roommate because he hadn't seen it, and yeah, like this movie kicks ass. Like it's from start to finish, like the whole cast is clicks. The introduction of Henry Cavill is cool because he's good at his job, but he's like that little bit more impulsive character who's just like ready to like just do something, not wait around. He's not as calculated, but like he's still dangerous, and like that bathroom fight is brutal. Like the sky jump that they do is awesome, and the fact that he really did that too is like crazy. I just feel like they took the stunt work in this one to just a level that we've never really seen in movies in general. Like the fact that he's really hanging from these helicopter wires and flying helicopters and it's
with helicopters.
with helicopters.
They're dogfighting helicopters.
Yeah, which we've seen helicopter dogfights before, but like an extended one like this, to where it's like it's tense from start to finish, and there's a nice countdown going.
There's something about the environment that made it different. Yeah.
Well, and it even the way it's like the cliche thing of going down to like the last second, but like you have your doubts about this movie. You're like, they do that nice fake out near the end where like the sunset comes up and you think it might be the bomb going off, and you're like, I legit thought in the theater, I was like, oh, maybe they did it, like that would be crazy or whatever. And I even love the fake out at the beginning, the fake out at the beginning with the dude where they got Wolf Blitzer to like do a fake like CNN thing, like reading the shit, and then bring it, it's all the set. Like that's one of the best like kind of fake out reveals of the series. I love that stuff. But yeah, even the things where he's legit having to like, I feel like Ethan in this movie, and what makes it so fun is he has to make more like on the fly decisions in this movie, like more tense, like last minute stuff. Like he has to assume that one guy's identity and like pretend like he knows the plan, like the bad dude. And he's like trying to like put on the face of like knowing what he's talking about, but
dealing
like
with the
interrogation techniques
and all that stuff. The kind of the
widow
standoff with all the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just one of those where it's like everything about that.
Yeah, and having to figure out how we can get Solomon out of there without killing all the cops, and they do that sort of fantasy fake out thing where he's killing all the cops and like they pull it back, like a Final Destination sort of thing, or just like they pull it back. Like I feel like it's more that lays out the tension in this one really well, to where like you really don't know like what he's gonna do, and like it keeps you on your toes. Like it's a lot of fun. But yeah, the cinematography is absolutely stunning, and this movie looks awesome in 4K. Like it looks amazing. And yeah, the filmmaking is just top notch here. I just have more of a sentimental like fun thing that a casual fun that I have with my number one that I just put on a lot. It just bumps it up a little bit more than this one. But it's no knocking at this one. It's a 5-star movie. It rocks. Like it's awesome. So yeah.
Yeah. Like, like I said, when I think about this franchise and I'm thinking about like what why do I like this franchise? I close my eyes, and I say this about like a lot of things. Like it just makes it easier to like cipher what is like top tier for me. When I'm closing my eyes, I have like three things: either something that I just naturally, instinctively talk about or quote, regardless, depending on the type of movie. Where it's like I don't even think twice. It's just in my everyday conversation, or more days than not. Then that's that. Or if I'm thinking about something like a franchise or filmography or whatever, I close my eyes and it's I don't even like hesitate, and it's the first one I think of. This is the case for me, where it's like it could be one of the things where it's not nostalgia, obviously, because it's a later movie, but like this was the one I saw in theater. So I mean, obviously that could play a factor in it. It's one of those where I'm like, wow, that this franchise, this is this. I thought it was this. You know what I mean? So I mean, there could be different elements to it, but yeah, this is just my jam, dude. Like everything, with dealing with the what is the CIA, right? Or FBI.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like CIA versus the IMF versus it's like Angela Bassett. It has like
you have Henry Cavill's
stuff.
character, where it's like if you've ever seen a movie, he's going to turn, but in
Right.
terms of the writing, it's not 100% like in your face. You know what I mean? It does a good job of like taking its time, and the whole scene when they're free falling and they like pass out and all that stuff, and it's like kind of waking up and they're crashing a party, and it does a good, like the filmmaking's great. Like it just does a good job of like putting you in
one
action.
cool thing about that is you think he might turn, but you also think he might just be that double guy that's reporting to him, so you might just kind of underhand him. You don't know if he's full on like a bad guy, but you might be like, okay,
like,
he might just be a dick, like trying to underhand him and like work, because he's got his bosses and Ethan has his bosses. So
it's a great comparison is in the Suicide Squad with Idris Elba's character and John Cena. It's like they're just kind of the same. So it's like, is he really a bad guy and who's going to turn, or is he just doing his own thing, but it's kind of different? And I feel like it's more like that. Like essentially, like that's a good comparison, where it's like you don't really hate him because he's not really doing anything wrong. The mission is just different. You know what I mean? And he does a good job portraying it. Like at no point in this movie do you see Superman, and this was the heights, quote unquote, the height of him as Superman. So that is a testament of him just as an actor. And like you said, in the helicopters, when he, I don't know exactly how much of him is in it, but like he's in it enough to where it's like he doesn't just feel like a big buff guy in a helicopter that feels awkward. It actually feels like he's fighting that stuff. And obviously the bathroom stuff, and people want to meme the arm cock, but it's like that all that shit is awesome.
Hey, listen, I know it's awesome because like I remember when that trailer first came out, and I know you used to do trailer reactions. I used to watch a lot of them too, and I still do occasionally. But like I would go watch these reaction videos, and when they had that thing in the trailer where he pops like the things and whatever, everybody's like, oh shit, here comes
and especially it was to the beat of the music too, like or it dropped. I couldn't remember, it was one of the two, and it just
something like that. And you were just like, hell yeah.
And by the way, in that scene, the guy that they're like trying to take his face is beating the shit out of them. Like he's like,
he's taking him on 2-on-1.
And like it just shows, and that's another. I think that's a very underrated thing about this franchise in general. It's like Ethan Hunt and his team in general, but
he's not invincible.
He's not invincible, dude. He gets his ass kicked way more times than he doesn't. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously we talked about that in Ghost in 3, but it's like obviously he's tied up and stuff in 3 and bloody and stuff. But like in the franchise, like he's not winning that often, really. He's always kind of on his heels the entire franchise, and that's what makes him so lovable and great, because this franchise is what technically Die Hard should have been as a whole. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like if they were able to figure out a way to make Die Hard a real 5-movie franchise, that's what it would be in comparison to this, because it's like that's who this is, just on a grander scale of MI6, not New York Cop. But I love this movie. Like I said, this is a movie that going in, do I love more the 100% like back and forth with him and Ilsa in 5 and Solomon at the height of his like villainous, or do I like him more in 6 of dealing with him on just kind of weirdly feeling like he's got some strings, like the scene in that is, what is that? I don't want to call it it's like a cabin kind of in that house.
And
all that stuff like that's really tense. You know what I mean? Like the filmmaking on that is really good. Like you don't know exactly where it's gonna go, and like it doesn't paint the picture of like, oh, it's gonna go this way, it's gonna go. It could go either way. And like you said, that Mexican standoff scene, and just like there's just so many layers of this movie that I could just talk about. Like I love this movie. Like this movie, like honestly, if I go into like 7 and 7 is a banger, like a banger, what's my favorite? One of these movies are going to be in my like top, because I love this franchise. I just need to decide what, and that's that's a testament to this franchise that I don't know
Well,
which
and it
one I
might
want to
be
pick.
again what you're in the mood for at the time, like
That's another
what
thing.
you're looking for. If
Because
you're
none
looking
of
for
them are the
more of
same.
like,
Even 5 and 6
yeah, yeah,
that are like kind of the
yeah.
same, they're still not the same. So you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you can watch this franchise from start to finish and not feel repetitive.
Well,
And I love
not feel like you're shrugging your shoulders, going like, I just got to get through this one. Like each
yeah,
one brings
exactly.
something different to the table, like and has a different dynamic. And yeah, like even though 5 and 6 are both Christopher McQuarrie, Tom Cruise produced like productions or whatever, yeah, there's still different things about them and different story beats and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, my number one, if you figured it out, is Ghost Protocol, and I think. Just for me, I did see this one in IMAX, which maybe helps. Like when I first saw it, and this movie just knocked my freaking socks off. Like I had been a casual fan of this series. I was a big defender of Mission Impossible. I feel like Mission Impossible 3 got kind of overlooked at the time, and it still kind of does. But that movie really stuck with me. So when they started doing the material for Ghost Protocol, started coming out, and I was getting hyped for it, and it was like, oh, Brad Bird filmed all this stuff in IMAX, like, and we started seeing the trailers, and it was like, what's he doing? Like, oh, he's really like hanging from a wire like on the Dubai Tower. Like, what? Like that's crazy. Like, no, seriously, like he really did all this? Okay. And then you go into the movie, and I still like that first hour. I think that prison break, like you don't really know like why it's going on at first, but like it's still fun, like with Benji like opening up the random doors and like him just having a lot of the hand-to-hand combat, like all that stuff. I love that prison break scene. The Kremlin heist where they have like the fake like green screen wall is one of my favorite heist things like they've ever done in any of these movies. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love what Simon Pegg brings to this movie, because you can tell he's so happy and excited to be like doing something in this movie. Like he's so happy, like he can tell, like,
and a character.
yeah, as an actor and a character, he's got this twinkle in his eye in this movie where, like, again, he was in the third one, but he was just like the guy in the chair. And obviously part of it is them promoting him to field duty in this movie. But like, he's so excited to be doing this stuff. Like you said, the stuff where he's sweating it out over just like making masks and stuff, like doing the computer stuff while Tom Cruise is hanging out a window. But he brings a really fun dynamic to this movie. I think his chemistry with Tom Cruise in this one is maybe the best out of any of them, just in my personal opinion. Just because they just bounce off each other so well. It's funny. You remember a time, Henry, about 10 years ago when they thought Tom Cruise was getting too old for this franchise, so they brought in Jeremy Renner to like take over the franchise potentially, and then like now Tom Cruise is still like top of his game, like being a madman. It's
when
so
Dead Reckoning
weird.
comes
like,
out next year, that's going to be a full 12 years after this one. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, this movie's like over 10 years old. It still feels fresh to me. Yeah, I mean, I still like that first hour. I think there's a lot of great chase sequences and things. The Dubai stuff is obviously dynamite. Like we've already talked about that. Like it's a high point of this whole series. But yeah, I even like the stuff in Japan or Hong Kong, wherever it is at the end, like all that parking garage stuff and like the chases with the stuff on the screen, like all that stuff is just really great. And how they kind of work then the wife near the end to kind of try to wrap up some of the previous storyline stuff. I just think this movie's a hot banger from start to finish. I think it's great.
And then you bring Luther in at the end, similar.
Yeah,
kind of. And it's like, because that's a good trivia question. Don't forget that Luther is the only other character with Tom Cruise that's been in all of them, because he does.
Been in all of them. Yeah, I mean, some people forget that he's in that original one, but like he's in that original one. Like you almost forget that because he was hot off of Pulp Fiction and what's his name? Jean Reno was hot off of Leon the Professional, so like they got that hot young cast in there. But yeah, I just think this movie just rocks from start to finish. It's just a blast. And yeah, again, maybe for me it's because I did see it in theaters. I saw it I want to say I saw it 3 or 4 times in IMAX in theaters. Like I loved the experience of this movie.
I feel like you with Ghost Protocol is the same with me in Fallout, and that's just not a bad.
Yeah, it's just something. Yeah, because they're all great movies, as we've said. Like there's not really any bad movies. It's just like the ones we personally go back to.
Like honestly,
and the fact
Ghost
that we can all have a good one.
Borderline 5. Like it's not far off. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's close. Like so, my 1, 2, and 3 could be 5 stars on any given Sunday. So it's like I 100%.
Hey,
on
maybe when the new one comes out, there'll be some like IMAX marathon. You can go watch it in IMAX or something. Who knows? Or go see it in the theater. Yeah, like but
after all the money Tom Cruise is making for Top Gun right now, I bet he's like, "Yo,
dude,
throw it.
Let's go, man. Throw it again. Yeah, do it again." But yeah, it's good stuff. I think this movie is just a ball of fun, man. Just from start to finish, I just think it's a hell of a roller coaster. coaster ride. So I've always liked Ghost Protocol, and it's just been my favorite
when you
since I saw
ask,
it.
honestly, like if you did a poll and you're like, yo, what's your favorite Mission Impossible movie? More times than not, people are going to say Ghost Protocol, and that's because it's essentially the Fast Five of this movie. This is 100% the start.
Oh, this one is
I mean,
this one is the Fast Five. Like that is the comparison. Like and
three,
that's the thing. It's like people
three
love Fast Five, but
yeah.
some people love Fast and Furious 6 or 7. Like some people love those movies even more. And like and I totally get it. But 5 is that one where they took the rocket ship to the moon. You know what I mean? Like they took it to a whole nother level.
9 is when they took the rocket ship to the moon. No, I was kidding.
Yeah. The Pinto to the moon or whatever the hell it was. Jesus. We'll talk about that eventually.
I'll be ready. I'm a huge fan of those movies, so I'm cool with that one. But
I like. Well, that's one I'll tease it right now. Like I won't say what it is. I have a very surprising number one for that one that you will be blown away by my number one for that franchise. I'll just say that right now.
I have a guess, but obviously I'll you know me. I'll always tell you my.
It's just a tease. It's just a tease. Just a tease.
I'll let you know what I think mine is later. But yeah. So any final thoughts on Ghost Protocol?
No, I mean that's just it. Again, I just love it because that's where the one where it really takes off, and I think really set the stage for how big these movies are now. Like that's really just what it is. Like literally, like the over the top, like Tom Cruise just coming up with ideas in his head and actually executing and just being the crazy man that he is now and just doing everything and whatever he has to do for the movie. So he's got to learn to fly a helicopter, learn to fly a plane, learn to do this, learn, sky jump, whatever. Like with this new one, he's base jumping a motorcycle off a mountain and and parachuting and just being a crazy person again. Like I just dig what he's doing. And this franchise, I dare to say, because Mission Impossible 2 bumped up a little for me, I don't think it's a bad movie in this franchise. I think it's almost like it's not perfect as far as everyone's like a 5-star movie, but I think they're all positive, which is like hard to say for a lot. There's not a lot of franchises that are all positive, maybe other than like Toy Story or something, or something like that. Or
I don't think anything that's got 5 or more, or even 4. You know what I mean? Because we did Lethal Weapon. Even Lethal Weapon, we were like, all right. We both agreed, or I don't remember if we were different on 3 and 4, but I know that we were still like borderline.
We flip-flop, yeah, something like that. But
but the point is, like,
they weren't bad.
4 or more. Yeah. It's very, like if you look at Die Hard, boom, everyone hates at least one. You look at Indiana Jones, everyone hates at least one. You look at Jurassic Park, you know what I mean? All the ones that are like the smaller franchises, everyone hates at least one. So obviously people pretend to hate Mission Impossible 2, but I really think that's them just
Fast and Furious. Everybody has one that they hate or one that they dislike. Same thing. Like so, like there's none. Like this might be, Mission Impossible 2 is like the low point, but even the low point is still a fun, breezy, entertaining action movie. So like, for what it is, so like they're all positive in my book, which is success. Like I think they're still batting 100 right now. So unless Dead Reckoning just sucks ass for whatever reason, which I don't think it will. I have a feeling it's not going to.
Here's a good example of why I don't think Mission Impossible 2 is actually bad. I think it's just people not having the balls to admit that they like it. I'm just gonna do a quick rundown of a lot of these ratings. 2.5, 2.5, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It's a lot of 2s, and I feel like that's just lazy. I feel like that's a lot of people just not having the balls to be like, hey, this is a good, solid movie. You know what I mean? Because most of them aren't reviewed. It's just star ratings, so it's like them not actually saying their input. It's just a lot of, and I've noticed that with a lot of movies whenever I go back, whether it's me and John talking about a horror movie or us talking about a franchise, I'll look back and I'm like, wow, what do these people think about it? Oh, look. Like for example, movie 43 is a great example. It's like if you actually look at a lot of people's ratings, they either have it as a 0.5 star or like a 1 star, but no one actually has a review on it. And I'm like, either A, they haven't actually seen the movie, or B, they don't have anything to say because they're afraid they're going to be too positive.
They don't have the balls to say that movie 43 makes you fucking laugh, which it makes me laugh. I think that movie has really funny segments in it. You have to put yourself in the mindset of a really stupid comedy, but it's a really stupid, funny movie. Like, and people don't have the balls to say that they actually probably laughed at a lot of the really dumb shit in that movie. But
because
like,
they don't want to be the one who likes it.
Yeah,
that's lame. Yeah, and I feel like that's exactly what this is with Mission Impossible 2. I really feel like once 7 comes around next year and everyone's doing their rewatch and their re-ranking a lot, like I swear to God, stamp this right now. When you watch, whether it's on YouTube or Letterboxd or any of these reviews, people are gonna be like, "Wow, Mission Impossible 2 is a lot better than I thought," or "I haven't seen it since the theaters," and "Wow, this is actually really good," or whatever. Like it probably will still be at the bottom. Like I'm not trying to say it's going to become people's number ones or anything.
No, but people will turn the corner about it being positive. Like,
positive.
Yeah.
And that's what upsets me. It's like quit being lazy with your.
We did it first, right here on Let's Rank Stuff. We said it first. It's still positive.
Mission Impossible 2 is a good movie.
It's not the best of the series, but it's a pretty good movie. So yeah,
I'll even go further and say it is 100% the bottom of the series, but it's still a good movie. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Like
it's still a pretty damn fun action movie.
Like for the majority of people, this is the death proof of Tarantino's filmography, but that's still a good movie. Like, what are we talking about?
But I rewatched Death Proof, and I was like, this is still a pretty good movie. Like, if you put it, if you reevaluate it, like, it's
the black sheep,
but
in a good way.
Is it the best Tarantino? No, but it's still a pretty good movie. Like, it's all right. So
it is. Yeah. So with that said, our number 6 is Mission Impossible 2. Obviously, no tricks there. Our number 5 ranked up is going to be Mission Impossible. Our number 4, this is one of the ones where it's going to get a little interesting. Mission Impossible 3. Kind of we both were in the middle, so it's it's the average.
That's fine.
Average there.
I honestly, the one that I was really racking my brain over was Rogue Nation in my 3 for me. Like, it could have swapped either one, but like I just had Mission Impossible 3 is the ones I've always had more of a fascination with and gone back to a lot more.
On paper, if you're picking Sean Harris and Philip Seymour Hoffman, you're going to pick Philip Seymour Hoffman. So I get that. Like, if you're looking for a tiebreaker, that's probably it.
Right.
So with that said, I let you win the coin flip here. Number 3 is Rogue Nation. But here's where I won the coin top. Number 2 is Ghost Protocol.
That's fine. Hey, Fallout's awesome. Like, I will not say bad. I don't have anything bad to say about Fallout. It's literally just like a heart thing of the one I've gone back to watch more. Like, but Fallout could, like, my most recent rewatch, like, I was like, God damn, man, there's like no flaws in this movie. This is a damn good movie. Like, this is like,
it's not even that short. Like, it's got some length to it, but it doesn't feel like.
And I will say we did a tier ranker fights, and we had to break up 2010s action movies into 2 parts because it was just so loaded, and we had the back half of the 2010s, on there. Yeah. And Mission Impossible Fallout was our number 1, like, consensus across the board. Like, we all rated it as like the best one of the back half of the decade. So like we were all.
What years were spanning that? 2016.
It was 2016 to now, pretty much. Like,
so what won the first half? I'm curious.
Ghost Protocol was like number 3 or something. And then I think number 1 was like The Raid, I think.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because my gut, without like looking into, my gut says, Mad Max Fury Road. So it's one of those where I'm just curious. So, like,
Fury Road was Fury Road was top 5. Like, it was in there. Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, the reason I say that, the reason I even bring that up is, like, when I think of the bottom half, like, Fallout is one of the first ones that come up. If it's not the first, it's one of the, you know what I mean? So it just shows.
No, it was brought up within the first like couple of nominations. Like, we were like, Fallout is like there, but like Rogue Nation was like in the top 10 too. Like, we had both the movies in there, so like it was right up there. Like, all 3 of those movies, the 4, 5, and 6 are all like bangers of action movies. Like, they're all great. Yeah.
Franchises can get technically better with time. Maybe not horror franchise, but other franchises can. It's
hey, with the Saw movies, they kind of could. With I
not
really
like not if we're including 6.
Yeah, we are.
Austin,
hey, Final Destination 5 is really good. Some of those. So, we're gonna do Final Destination at some point. You damn right, we're gonna do that. And I think, well, the new one's gonna be straight to streaming. So when it comes out, we'll definitely do it. Like, we'll have to do that franchise because it's coming out. I think it's already done. But we're gonna do that at some point because I love that franchise too.
I'll be ready for that. But until then, go ahead and tell us what's on the docket.
Sure.
I know we have the next 2 weeks planned. I don't think we would.
Yeah. No, we not yet. But when we'll either next week or the week after, we'll let you guys know what we're doing after. But next week, in the immediate future, we'll be doing Adam McKay. So it's a mix of like kind of dramas and comedy. Like, it should be an interesting ranking because again, there's so many different movies in there where he started out as this comic, comedian, comic director, and he's become this dramatic Oscar-nominated, director. So it's one of those interesting things where his career has turned, and we'll talk about that. The week after, we're going to tie it into the next big blockbuster that's coming out. Yeah, Jurassic World Dominion, and I'm a big fan of that franchise. You've said you've got a couple of blind spots you're going to fill in for that one, and talk about them. So I'll be interested to see where you fall on those because I'm again, people crap on 2 and 3. I'm a defender, and I hope you'll be the same thing. Like, I hope you'll be able to see the positives in those because I think they're a lot of fun.
Even if they're like Mission Impossible 2, where they're clearly the
that's
bottom.
That's what I mean.
And I'm okay with that.
There's some of those might be at the bottom, but I'm just saying I still think they're good, fun blockbuster movies. That's all I'm saying. I'm not totally previewing where I'll have them in my rankings, but they have this bad reputation, like MI2, like some of these movies that we talk about. And I think when you see it like with an open mind, you'd be like, hey, it's all right. You know what I mean? Like, what's everybody talking about? Like, this is a pretty good movie. Like, it's not a stinker. It's not, this, that, the other. So, but yeah, that's what we got in the immediate future. As far as everything else, yeah, Movie Hero Network, we got tier ranker fights, tournament fights, all that jazz. A podcast about movies we'll be doing this weekend, me and Jacob Barber, and Lonely Marks podcast. If you're into wrestling, we'll be talking about AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view from last week. So there you go. That's all. That's all. Everything I got going on.
And if for some reason you randomly clicked on this video and you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, because like we have already teased that we do this every week, every Wednesday. We don't have a set time, so make sure you turn on the post notifications so you know exactly when we're on, so you don't pop in and 30 minutes in and you're spoiling the rankings. But also on Mondays, we didn't do it this week because of Memorial Day, but me and John Morrow, we have a There Will Be Horror podcast where we talk about 3 horror movies, a niche one, a mainstream, and a new release, and we kind of have a lot of fun with that. And then if you stay on the channel,
what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing next? Do you know?
It was supposed to be this week, but we're doing 3 French films. We're doing Raw, Titan, and Martyrs. So yeah,
I blind bought Titan or Titan, yeah, however you pronounce it. Because I try to follow along with you guys if I know what's coming up, and I blind bought it. I've got the Blu-ray sitting over there. I want to watch it, but I've heard crazy things about it. I love bonkers, crazy horror movies.
I'm definitely curious.
I like Cronenberg, body horror, weird shit. So like I'm down for that. So I might have to squeeze in and watch and listen to what you guys think. So I do follow along with you guys and have fun with that. So yeah,
it is definitely something. Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. And then we also have There Will Be Trivia Singles League on the channel. We're also starting up a teams tournament as well as that. And also we have something that I can't even hint at because I kind of want to be a complete surprise, but we have something cooking behind the scenes and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, okay. I'll leave it at that. So like I said, if with that said, if you made this far in the video, whether it's a first time watch or a second time or first time viewer or a second
bell, time, everything, yeah,
do all that stuff. You guys know the drill. It helps the algorithm, especially when we're trying to rank stuff. We know that what we're doing is fantastic, but the world doesn't. So if you help us with the algorithm, that's definitely going to help things out. So shout out to Ospes Hout. Good luck. I'll leave it at that. And my name's Anthony. We'll see you guys next week where we'll be ranking Adam McKay. Bye, guys.